Most Texans lived on farms or ranches and had crops or livestock in the mid 1800s. Farms and ranches occurred all over Texas, but cash crops like sugar and cotton had specific counties in Texas where they grew the most. The most common cash crops were cotton and sugar cane, and the most common subsistence crops were corn and potatoes. The most common animals raised for livestock were pigs, cows, and chickens. Ranches and farms were easy to start, not only because of the amount of land, but also the good quality of soil and grass for the livestock. Lots of Tejanos kept their land in ranches. Also, it was easy to get cattle because wild cattle roamed southern and southeastern Texas, and many small towns began to pop up all over Texas as hubs for all the crops and animals. For example, Jefferson, Texas, in East Texas was established to export cotton from eastern Texas to Louisiana. After Texas became independent from Mexico, lots of new settlers came to Texas and settled in clumps close together to form new towns, often along rivers. New towns were also started for natural resources, like Grand Saline in East Texas for the salt deposits. Also, many forts were being built to protect frontier families from Native Americans.
Many Texans in new towns started businesses in their towns. Many became brick masons, blacksmiths, and wheelwrights. People started to focus on specific skills or specification and became very good at what they did, but many farmed and did other things on the side as well. Many Texans became involved in law, ministry, medicine, and teaching. One Texas man, Gale Borden, invented condensed milk, which evolved into the milk company today, Borden, with Elsie the cow. Gale also invented the meat biscuit, which won a gold medal in the Crystal Palace expedition in London in 1851. And in 1854, a revolution for communication came to Texas. Texas and Red River Telegraph Company was established in 1854. Its first office was in Marshall, Texas, and extended all across Texas.
Many Texans lived on isolated farms with lots of land. Many Texans didn't visit with their neighbors on a regular basis to socialize because they were so far apart. The San Jacinto Ball was the one event where many Texans gathered and danced. Stagecoaches were popular but expensive. A trip from San Antonio to San Diego took about 30 days, and the cost of the trip was $200, which was back then about a year's wage. It went 5 to 8 miles per hour, but it had trouble getting out of holes and ditches. Steamboats operated on major rivers such as the Colorado River. The ride was comfortable and cheap, but it had many problems. They broke down frequently and could not go through narrow waterways. Railroads were another major form of travel. The first railroad station was out of Houston and connected other surrounding communities. It was a vital part in transporting goods. It was built in 1852 and finished in 1860.
There weren't public schools in Texas except in Houston. The first public school teacher was hired in 1839. There were many private schools, many more than there were public schools. Governor Elisha Pease set aside $2 million for the school fund. Baylor University in Waco, Texas, was founded in 1845, and that is an example of how most colleges were started by churches. Mexico was only Roman Catholic, so many Texans and Tejanos were still Roman Catholic. The religion was still strong, but other churches started growing. For example, Protestant, Methodist, Baptist, and Presbyterian.
There were no efforts to end slavery for a long time, as more plantations were created in Texas, especially in South and Central Texas. More slaves were brought in. Some slave owners were kind to their slaves, while others were cruel and abused their slaves often. Many families depended on slaves to get work done. Slaves were so unfairly treated that they were even bid for at auctions. Native Americans were also mistreated. They were forced out of their own land and onto U.S. government reservations, which were very few. Any natives who hadn't yet been put into reservations battled with the pioneers on the land that Americans had just discovered.